Welcome back to another reaction. Today I'm going to look at a video that I come across my feed a couple of days ago. It's not that old. It's a 3-day old video. Americans are taking over Europe. um, that's the shoe on the other foot, isn't it? All right. So I'd like to check that out and see what's going on. If it's a bad thing or what. If it's like people from California, I feel sorry for you. So we'll see. All right.
If you walk in the streets of Valencia, you'll pick up English, but not just any English, American English.
Speak the right way, the American way.
Valencia is one of the most international cities in the whole of Spain. It's a tourism hotspot, it has multiple universities and English language schools. And it's becoming one of the favorite destinations for Americans in both Spain and in Europe. And I'm here to investigate a topic that you might have seen on YouTube before. There is an entire subgenre of YouTubers praising the European way of life and escaping the United States. I initially thought this might be just a media trend, since complaining about your country seems like a sure way to get those sweet clicks and views. But when I took a look at the numbers and started talking to Americans who made the move,
they still have their homes in the US.
I learned that it's not just the vloggers that are coming here. Instead, it's the story of what seems like a growing trickle of Americans emigrating to Europe. New visas, online work, and an increasingly English-speaking Europe have lowered the threshold to come, while the United States is becoming a more unhospitable country.
On the latest outbreak of gun violence,
the trafficking of fentanyl and other synthetic opioids.
The Supreme Court ruled to end Roe v. Wade.
While the United States has prided itself on the promise of the American dream, and for many remains a land of opportunity, could it be that its neglect of social policy is coming back to bite it? And might Europe's bet on quality of life finally be paying economic dividends?
Right. Not.
Since its founding, the United States has been a country of immigration, with more than 1 million people migrating to the country in 2022. But the United States is also becoming a country of emigration. Before I go out into the city, I have a couple of graphs to show you to give you an idea of how significant this transformation is. Americans have historically not been the globe-trotting types. After all, the United States has everything you could wish for: cities with varying climates, diverse geography, and jobs and opportunity aplenty. In fact, in 1999, The Economist wrote that educated Americans were the least likely people to leave their country. But over the past 2 decades, the number of passports issued by the United States has boomed, particularly after the 2007 financial crisis and what I can only assume is the aftermath of the 2016 US presidential elections, which was won by Donald Trump. Today, some 40% of Americans have a passport, and some have used it to cross the Atlantic to make their way to Europe.
Okay.
And if you're
Let me point something out. If you're getting people in Europe because Donald Trump won, I guarantee you it's not the people you want there. Right? So have at them. They're yours. All right. And as far as the other stuff goes, he used a clip of Donald Trump as a reason that America's inhospitable. Okay, that's bullshit. Gun violence, again, it's not a gun problem, it's a people problem. If you look at the actual policies, that, criminals are thriving and don't get in trouble for shit, that's why there's a problem. Okay, and if it wasn't guns, it'd be something else. And if you look at the past, we used to train kids in school with target practice and stuff. Look at the history. Never had any problem with gun violence. So it's actually the people and the way that people are coming to be. That's the problem. It has nothing to do with guns. Now, fentanyl, yes, but look at where it's coming from. It's coming from the southern border. That's not us. All right, there's people flooding that shit in here. So let's look at the facts, okay? Let's not break it down to, trying to get bait clicks and stupid shit, all right? And if I guarantee you, if you're getting the people who hate Donald Trump, they're the people that you don't want, because they will believe anything they are told. Absolutely anything. All right? So let's keep it real.
So the data I found on American migration is imperfect. It turns out it's quite hard to get a precise number. I thought of looking at the number of registered voters, granted visas, or permanent residents. For the latter, it shows a steady increase in Americans having permanent residency in Europe, with their favorite destinations being the south of the continent, particularly Spain, Italy, and Portugal. If we look at other data, there would apparently be 200,000 Americans living in France alone, versus about 40,000 if you look at the number of permanent residents. But I have a hunch that the number of Americans is greater than that for the whole of Europe, especially because of the time it takes to get more permanent status. Some Americans basically move between European countries every 90 days while they wait for the slow wheels of Europe's bureaucracies to do their work. Yet throughout all these different metrics, one thing is clear. The number
I find that interesting. This slow bureaucracy of how Europe works for immigration. That's funny because America gets criticized for the legal route that people have to go through and the wait, but yet other countries are doing it as well. So who would imagine, right?
number of American expats migrating to Europe is increasing. And there are multiple, often personal stories for that. But they boil down to Europe simply being a better place to live. Now, I could go through all the reasons and show you graphs for why that is, like social mobility, cheaper education, access to healthcare, maternity leave, or work-life balance.
Why do people keep saying access to healthcare? We got healthcare. Okay? Let's this video is gonna piss me off. All right. Here's the thing, okay? Let's not play pretend. All right? You guys have healthcare that's paid for by your taxes. Therefore, you are paying for healthcare. All right? We either have insurance out here that pays for the healthcare, or if you're not insured, you still get healthcare. You do not get denied. You go to the ER, you're getting healthcare. It's simple as that. All right? You're not going to be turned away. Nobody's turned away. It'll go on your collection. Like if you don't pay it, you'll get collected from. However, after so many years, about 7, it falls off your credit report. Okay? So there's that. It's uncollectible. And then also, if you do have stuff in collections, you'll still get access to healthcare. If you need to get in there, you will not be turned away. I don't care if you owe $1 million. You will not get turned away. All right? That's just the way it is. Let's stick to facts, all right? This is the kind of shit that I'm talking about. Is because people want to believe whatever the hell the TV tells them and not actual facts, all right? So if enough people, figure something out, or not figure, they're told something, and then they go and they spread that to their friends and so on, and it becomes the mimic game, right? And nobody's actually looking up the facts. They're just spouting off the same crap as they were told by someone else who also heard it from somebody else. It's just not the way it is, man. Let's be real, all right? And that's the thing. Is the problem with people that don't want to actually learn. They just want to regurgitate some shit. I had someone knock me over one of my comments about the AFL in Australia, and asked the question, do you have to kick it through the goal or can you run it through? And then they called me stupid. They called me stupid because, of course, you got to run it or kick it through. Well, guess what? In the NFL, you can run it to the goal, okay? So that's why I asked. Not everything is how you think it is in your purview, in your perspective, all right? There's other countries out there. You want to criticize America a lot, and yet you don't want to learn about it and how it works. And so you have nothing to criticize, really. Let's be real. Let's go.
I could also show you maps of walkable cities. I know that it's kind of a Euroflex. Others come to leverage this, the American dollar, through geo-arbitrage.
There's something called geo-arbitrage, which basically means you can take what you earn in one place and move to another place that's cheaper and leverage it.
Since Americans earn more in absolute terms and the euro has fallen relative to the dollar, American incomes and savings can get more bang for their buck here. But based off of the people I've talked to here, there is one reason that stands out more than the rest. safety.
I was also worried that if I went to a grocery store, was I going to get shot?
We know 5 people in the Seattle area, they were shot in a parking lot.
Well, this is a safe place to have kids.
Carnage in our nation's schools has become painfully repetitive.
Who would have thought that keeping themselves and their kids safe would be so high on people's list of priorities? And as it turns out, European countries are more than willing to oblige these American migrants. They're educated.
Okay, well, let's look at that. Let's be real, okay? If and you might want to pretend it's a stupid reason, but if your government comes to kill you, you should be able to fight back. That's the primary reason for having these guns in America, is to be able to fight back. It's simple as that. I shouldn't even have to explain that shit. And it's not the people who are legally holding guns that are the problem. It's the criminals that are not punished. They're not punished. They're let back out on the street. They're not even arrested sometimes. It's ridiculous. So let's actually look at the problem and not the tool, because that makes you the tool, right?
It's seen as culturally compatible, and while there is definitely a pool of retirees coming to enjoy a golden retirement, according to the stats, most are young and potentially valuable contributors to Europe's aging societies and government deficits. In the south of Europe, Spain, Italy, Portugal, and Greece have all set up digital nomad visas with substantial tax concessions in the hope of attracting remote workers to increase their tax bases. It's perfect for remote working Americans doing geographic arbitrage. But it has caused some backlash. Not just Americans, but also Europeans like myself that have come to live here raise prices on rent as internationals are able to price out locals, like in Portugal, where housing prices have increased by 40%, which has been blamed on mostly Americans coming to the country. And it's been trial and error to find winning recipes for these countries. Portugal scrapped its golden visa, which allowed free access to the country for a $600,000 investment, after mostly American investors started hoarding real estate and drove up housing prices. But in the north of Europe, it's a different story. After all, it doesn't make a lot of sense to live there as a digital nomad, since life is much more expensive and the weather is just terrible. Instead, these countries seem to be attracting a different cohort of Americans who are integrating much more into local economic life. In Amsterdam, one of continental Europe's more cosmopolitan cities, it's actually hard to find Dutch-speaking waiters. Settling down for Americans is much easier there, where English fluency is greater and where there are actually English-speaking jobs, owing to the export and trade-oriented economies of the North and the American investment in those countries. Recently, this has even created problems for top-tier jobs at the EU when Americans apply. And while the benefits of those migrants are clear, as with other immigrants, there's one important question. Will they integrate locally? After all, in Spain, like much of Southern Europe, there's little hope for additional American workers to integrate locally into the economy.
Obviously, you could work for a Spanish company, there's that back door, but that's extremely difficult because even Spaniards can't work for Spanish companies.
So the people coming here remain in a parallel, internationally focused economy, whereas in the north of the continent, where the economy and society is much more English-speaking, there is much more hope for Americans to fit in. Especially since on the cultural side, Americans are notoriously bad at other languages, and may, like many expats in new countries, judge that their English is enough to get around. But there's something I wanted to know. Is this American migration a potential silver bullet to some of Europe's biggest problems, like its place in the global competition for talent and for its aging population? Well, when it comes to talent, there are these lofty articles about the death of Silicon Valley and how engineers may relocate to Europe, as well as new startup laws in Spain or France, where European countries hope to attract global and American talent to bring much needed dynamism to their economies. But so far, American founders haven't flocked to Europe. It's more the disillusioned American upper middle class that is coming to the continent. European bureaucracy and taxes means that the United States are still the kings of business. But where it could also have an impact is on the emigration of Europeans to the United States. There are fewer Europeans applying for permanent residence. However, since it's mostly young people that immigrate, this may also be a result of an aging Europe. There are just fewer people in the age group to emigrate to the United States. So once again, this is a bit inconclusive. But what remains true out of all of this is that 40% of America's 230 million people are entitled to European citizenship through ancestry. Some will likely choose to vote with their feet. That's a pool of educated, culturally compatible workers that European countries could potentially tap into, But as it happens, it also is likely to reinforce the cultural and family bonds between both sides of the Atlantic. And it's something that could have deep implications on the languages spoken in Europe, and particularly how dominant English would become. While the volumes are relatively small, this first wave of American immigrants is a sign of what could potentially come. While right now, Europe seems to be a refuge for Americans looking for a better life rather than economic opportunity, and there are economic benefits to reap, if European countries can get their act together and offer a more friendly business environment, then it's possible that it's not just the middle class that would jump ship. But what do you think? Is offering good quality of life a suitable strategy? And can countries like Spain offer enticing offers to attract wealthy, educated, and entrepreneurial Americans? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. In a previous video, I've talked.
Well, let me say something here. Yes, obviously people are going to continue. There's going to be other groups that leave and immigrate. But the same thing goes for your country and other countries. It's just the way it is. It's how it's always been, and it's how it's always going to be. There's going to be people that line up with your way of life, and who want to go there, and there's people that absolutely hate it and want to leave. And that's just the way of the world, right? So there's no. I find it actually amusing that it's kind of like, there's a little bit of worry that there's so many Americans going over there. Welcome to our world. Welcome to our world, right? We have a way that things are, and people come over. They don't integrate. They want to bring their country with them and their ways with them, and change things here. And it's curiosity that we want to know why. Like, if you left your country because it's not the place where you want to be, then why do you want to make our country your country? Why do you want to make it just like where you left? It doesn't make no sense. And then the same thing's going to happen to you. The people that we don't want that are going to your country. I feel sorry for you, because they're going to do to you what they did to us. And I guarantee you, you're going to have a different viewpoint about certain topics, such as politicians. And and that's just the way it is. I actually knew this video was probably going to trigger the shit out of me, because there's always somebody criticizing America for shit that's actually not there to criticize. And if you have to make stuff up to criticize it, it's it makes you wonder if there's anything worth actually criticizing. And I know there is. I know there's actual real things you can criticize about America, but most of what he brought up, you can't criticize America. You have no clue. You literally have no clue. I know you think you do, but you absolutely don't. You're just missing. You're missing a lot. Aside from facts, you're missing perspective. Just imagine what it is to be us. Like, put yourself in our shoes in these situations, and you have your undesirables in your own country, born and raised there, and it's the same with us. You just put yourself in that scenario, but in our shoes. We have the undesirables, and now that they're going to your country, they're yours. So imagine if that were to happen. If you were to finally get rid of your undesirables and they came to us, you'd be excited. You'd be ecstatic. And that's how I feel about this, because based on everything that he said, and it could be a bullshit because the reasons were bullshit. So I really don't know what to say about it. But congratulations for your influx. But I'm staying where I'm at. Thank you. I'll catch you on the next one.